So this question is from Bessie, and she talks about how you track behavior, you validate the secondary, you make space and conjecture primary. And she's wondering, what are the next steps and specific language used to provide the reframe?
The reframe for me is, I have a few different perspectives on the reframe. You've heard me say before, the strength of your anger correlates with the depth of your fear and your pain. So I use that in stage 1 a lot because we get a lot of anger in those couples who come in, they're starting couple therapy, they're in an escalated pattern. That escalation by definition is defense with defense. And so people don't understand that, of course, their anger is an understandable protest. They're protesting the lack of connection, but they don't know the depth of their pain and fear. So that's one way that I help my partners understand their own emotionality, their own reactivity, and then I try to insert some attachment significance. Because your partner is so important to you, that's the reframe. You have this more extreme reactivity. Reactivity is driven by unprocessed pain or fear. And so because we know no emotion comes all by itself and unprocessed pain and fear tweak behaviors, it drives that defensive, reactive, secondary emotion. And then we can say, so I've literally said to a client, the louder she yells tells me how important you are to her. And he, in this case, it was a he, and he went, the louder, hang on, Kathryn, I got to hear that again. The louder she yells at me tells me the more important I am. And that's the start of a reframe, right? Because she's protesting. And the more mightily she protests, that tells me how important you are to her, how much she loves you, and how scared she is of losing you. So attachment significance, you're so important to each other that you do more extreme coping strategies to avoid losing the other.
Okay, that's so helpful. And just to be clear, will you do or reflect that reframe from day one or versions of it? Or do you wait until after you talk about the secondary and then talk about the conjecture of the primary and talk about the behaviors?
I don't have a cognitive thing in my head that says, wait to use that reframe. I use it when it makes sense for the process. So that could even be in a session 1, in a first session. Sometimes maybe I should tell myself to wait and save it for later in the process. But I think if it is relevant for where one or both partners are, why not just insert? It's just a quick soundbite. It's just a quick handle. It's just a quick way to orient them to their emotional intensity or to the depth of their distress, or to helping them explain their escalation. Because one partner will say, but my person, he's so polite when we're at the grocery store. He's so nice to his colleagues. Why can't I get some of that niceness? And so we start helping them understand that the more important they are to each other from an attachment perspective, from a love perspective, the harder it will be for one to be nice to the other. It's much easier to be nice to a stranger. You don't need that stranger to meet your attachment needs, fears, and longings.
Right.
So I don't wait on it. As Betsy's question is highlighting, we're talking about tracking behavior to validate the secondary emotion, to then make space to conjecture the primary. And these reframes, in a way from the client change process in EFT, from the steps and stages part of our model, which highlights the client change, Betsy's reflection is about steps 1, 2, and 3, and the reframe has been known as step 4. As we know in EFT, you don't do the steps in linear fashion. Take the bit of step 4 that's relevant in a session now, even though you're doing steps 2 and 3. Don't say to yourself, oh, I haven't gotten to 4 yet. I can't say that. Just say it as it comes out for you, because you're attuning to your clients and you're helping to give them the information that will help them settle, to help them feel normal. Like we always talk about, Jen, we're making space for our clients' humanity. And the more we can do to help them settle, to feel normal, to give them signals that you're getting their distress and you're not overwhelmed by it, and you're actually helping them make sense of it, they're going to settle, which means they're going to de-escalate more quickly.
That's lovely. So we don't necessarily wait. It depends on your attunement and you're weaving it in, those reframes.
Sometimes in a very first session, I will use the reframe about how important they are to each other, and I'll zoom out so I can see both. If I'm worried that one isn't feeling those loving feelings anymore, or I'm getting hints of ambivalence, or I can't quite get their goals for treatment, their longings for treatment, their longings for the relationship sound so far apart, I'll use a reflection about their attachment significance with each other, I'll use a reframe just to see how they respond to that. Do they sigh? Do they look away? Do they roll their eyes? Do they say, oh, no, it's not that way anymore. It used to feel that way, but not lately.
Right. So it can be diagnostic too.
It can be diagnostic. Yeah. It's really, collect the data.
Yeah. So can I just reflect 3 reframes that I heard you use? And I remember that you used yesterday.
Yeah, please.
So the strength of your anger correlates to the depth of your fear. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Strength of your anger correlates to the depth of your fear, depth of your pain.
Mm-hmm. Either one.
And
technically, as we know, pain is a soup of anger, sadness, and fear. So same ballpark.
The second one is unprocessed pain tweaks behavior. And the third one is about love and interdependence. And I want you to say that one.
It's akin to highlighting the partner's attachment significance with each other because love requires interdependence. We don't get a choice about, I can be nice to my colleagues, but reactive with my loved one. Because love requires interdependence, when we don't get a signal of that connection and that interdependence, we go into our coping strategy. We panic, we react. And so I'll just even say, because love forces us to be interdependent, help me know how you cope when you send a signal to her that you need her and she doesn't signal back. It kind of reminds me, do you know when you're driving and, like a trucker wants to pass you and you'll flip your headlights to let them know it's okay to come in front of you?
Oh, yeah.
I love those moments because we're communicating to each other that you're good with me, I'm good with you, we're making space for you, your safety is important to me. And I mean, even now, it's super silly, but I get the chills because it's just like communicating with total strangers through the use of the headlights on the car to say, I see you.
Yeah.
And this is in a way a really silly example, but I love helping partners signal to each other that they matter. Love requires interdependence. We have to be able to send a signal that I see you and you matter to me. And when we don't send that signal or when we stop sending that signal, people panic. Attachment panic.
I love that example because I think clients can get overwhelmed by what it takes to send a signal and how big does it need to be? And right. It's sort of as simple as like turning on the headlights. Like it's just that see you.
Click.
I feel seen. Yeah, it's just a click.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
A flick, a ping, a drip. As we say in trauma treatment,
yes.
We know it's not the trauma history per se that tells us how likely recovery is, but my ability to eke out a sound in my moment of need.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I eke out a sound? Similar. Yeah. Yeah.
Metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay. For more hot tips on emotionally focused therapy, go to theeftcafe.com and sign up for our newsletter where you will receive short little clips like the one you just watched.